Hey everyone, it's Bree from HomemadeOnOurHomestead.com, and today I'm going to share with you the secret to preserving your produce for up to 2 weeks in the refrigerator. Before we get started with the sewing part of our video today, I'm going to go over some of the things that you're going to need to complete this project. So the first and most important is having an absorbent fabric. Now there's a lot of different fabrics out there on the market that you can buy, and unfortunately a lot of them are a synthetic base. For this project you really need something absorbent, so a bamboo, a hemp, a cotton. For today's tutorial I'm going to be using a 100% cotton terry cloth fabric. The reason I'm using this is because I usually purchase it by the yard at my local craft store pretty inexpensively, and I always find a ton of uses for it. I do a lot of sewing, a lot of craft projects at home, and I just really always have a use for this. But if you don't want to go to the craft store to purchase terry cloth, you can also repurpose old hand towels, washcloths, or bath towels. This is the perfect project to reuse those towels you have sitting around. You're really not sure what you're going to do with them, but you don't want to toss them. Cut them up for this. It's great. You're going to need a cutting surface and a pair of scissors or a cutting mat and a rotary cutter. You're going to need the containers that you want to make liners for. You don't have to use the containers themselves. You can also use the lids. You're really just using this as a template to put on your fabric to trace around so you make the right size. These are some of the liners that I've already made that I've used for about 6 months. They go right into the bottom of the container. You're going to cut up your vegetables and put them on top of the liner. If you fill up the container, you're going to put another piece of this liner on the top as a barrier between the food and the lid. That's just going to wick moisture away, keep that condensation away from your food so your produce lasts a lot longer. So over time this can really save you a lot of money. Then you're going to need either a serger or a regular sewing machine. Now for today's video I'll be showing you how I do it on both machines so you can see that it is possible and it works just fine. Now that we laid out the supplies that we're going to need for our tutorial video today, let's get cutting. So go ahead and lay your towel or your terry cloth fabric that you've purchased by the yard out on your cutting surface. You're going to want to make sure it's flat. This doesn't have to be exact, but just make sure you have any big wrinkles out of it. It's just going to make it easier for cutting. So lay that flat on your work surface. And then you're going to take your lid and you're going to put it down on your terry cloth. Again, this is only used for a template. So you're going to set your lid or the bowl on your terry cloth, and you're going to get a pen and you're going to trace around the lid. Now you're going to want to make sure that you can see the markings that you're making, and you're just going to trace all the way around. Again, making sure the fabric is lined up with the edge of the machine. Right here, this is kind of what I use as my guide. Start off slow, and then once you get more comfortable with the machine, you can really go fast and do these really quickly. I'm going to go ahead and actually do a couple more of these, and then I'm going to have 2 of the larger ones that I'm going to do on my Juki sewing machine. So we've now finished with the serger sewing machine. Now we're going to move over to the Juki, and I can show you how I sew up the edges if you don't have a serger available. Now we're over at my sewing machine, and I currently have a walking foot on my sewing machine, but this is not necessary. You can use a regular sewing foot, is going to work just fine. So the only thing you're going to want to do when you're sewing on a regular sewing machine and you're sewing the edges of these liners up is you're going to want to make sure that you turn your stitch length down. So the tighter the stitch is, it's going to prevent this from fraying when you put them in the wash and in the dryer. and I'm going to use the edge of my presser foot as my guide for my seam allowance. So that's about 1/4 inch. Put your presser foot down and start sewing. I'm going to back stitch a couple stitches. So 2 or 3 times around the entire area is really going to work to make sure that these do not fall apart and fray in the washing machine. So let's go around again. I'm at the beginning and I'm going to back stitch. Now my machine has an automatic thread cutter on the foot pedal. So that's what that noise was, but it's kind of hard to see on this fabric, but you can kind of see the tracks from my walking foot. So it's about 1/4 inch away from the edge. So I will say that if you are planning on doing this project on a regular home sewing machine, that you should expect to see some fraying. That is going to happen because you're not lock serging the edges down like you would a serger machine, but they will not fall apart. The whole purpose of sewing around the edge with a regular sewing machine is to really lock those threads in and to ensure that they don't completely fall apart when you put them in the washing machine. So just as an example, I don't know if this is going to show up on camera or not. This one in particular I have washed and dried 3 times. So there's really not a lot of fraying on there. Look, so I'm going to trim it. Just be careful that you don't trim through the sewing line that you just did. And that's it. That's all there is to making these really easy bowl liners to help prevent your fruits and vegetables and salads from spoiling in the fridge. Thank you so much for joining me for the sewing tutorial today. I hope you found it helpful. Check the comment section below and I'll leave links to all the supplies and the things that I used to complete this project. If you have any other questions, please feel free to ask. Here on the homestead, we do 2 videos a week on rustic living, food from scratch for a handmade home.